I'm Jarrett Carpenter. This is More Than Blockchain. On this episode, I have three guests that are going to take over because they're probably way more interesting than I am. And collectively, it's just going to be a shit show, pardon my Spanish. So let's go. Grant, Aussie, Jacki, welcome to the pod.
Yeah.
I think you guys have all been on. We used to run a show called Not Crypto Bros. If you go onto the YouTubles, you can find that. There was tons of episodes. Grant and I started that back in 2022. Aussie joined in 2023, and towards the end of 2023, Jacki joined for like 10 episodes. We've since left that project behind, but we were like, why don't we just talk again? Because we have a chat that's pretty live, whether it's on IG or it's on WhatsApp. So anyways, we're back. I think one of the things we wanted to talk about was Grant was mentioning whether he should rebalance his portfolio and dump everything into Bitcoin and ETH. I know Jacki, Aussie, and I have opinions on that, so we could dive in there. I know Jacki was in a sabbatical and currently trying to get back to the Bitcoin land or Bitcoin mining land, which is exciting for me as someone in Bitcoin mining. Aussie now, quote, Polygon is his life. We have a lot to check in on. If you used to follow the Not Crypto Bros show, welcome back. Probably shout out to Brian Naughton, Allison, maybe George Pate. I'm not sure who else might hear this, Victor. So anyway, let's dive in. I don't even know where to start, guys. I'm open to anything. Okay, good. There we go.
So
he just took that mic.
Yeah, I did. And that throws back to a year ago permissionless. And so my question is this. Why is crypto dumb? I did watch the Saylor video. And
you did? Good.
Yeah. And I was like, same shit, different day. Like, I was not impressed in one clip at all. And I was like, wait, it felt like an MLM hoorah at the end of the. Now, I believe in Bitcoin. For those watching in the recording later, I do believe in it, and I do believe in its future. But literally, for the hype it has been given from some people on this, I did not hear one thing that was new, interesting, or dynamic even. And the reason that I bring this up is because I did float the question in our WhatsApp, should I be selling my ETH? So this conversation really should be about ETH, but I just wanted to throw this in here like, what the crap? Like, what did you hear that I should have heard that I was like, I was looking for like some really awesome talk.
Okay.
And I was, go.
Do we let the Maxi talk or do we let the crypto Maxi talk? Because there's different there's going to be different opinions here. And you should have watched the Murad speech and talk that I posted, because that one you would love. Okay. You would love that one.
Okay.
And as much as Jarrett's a Bitcoin Maxi, I think he would probably enjoy it too. It's
Aussie or Jacki, you guys want to jump in on what Grant said? Jacki, were you able to watch the Saylor? This is the Saylor keynote that he gave in Nashville. I'm going to leave the link in the description for everyone to go check out. It's 37 minutes long. I find it to be profound. Maybe I'm biased because I was in the room, and I just think the things he lays out are amazing. But Jacki, Aussie, do you guys want to jump in?
I'm going to line up with Grant just a little bit, actually. I thought the compound growth that he's talking about was pretty interesting, just like from a pure statistics perspective. But in terms of like all the numbers that he was laying out, okay, a lot of it made sense. Like I get what you're saying. But in terms of how it changed my perspective on Bitcoin, it didn't. It more or less kind of solidified my opinion that yes, I do see the future with Bitcoin, and that in terms of returns, looking at Bitcoin or more cryptocurrency as a whole is a much more viable investment solution and wealth preservation solution than anything that's available kind of in the stock market or kind of in physical property up until now. And so for me, it solidified those perspectives, but as Grant said, I don't think it necessarily laid out anything new. It maybe put out some fresh numbers to it, put some really hard numbers to it, but it didn't change or evolve the conversation.
So for me, I think what was great about it, and I agree with like Grant and Aussie, that for people that have been in the industry or people following Bitcoin, yeah, like nothing really shockingly new. However, I think this is a very shareable podcast. I think it's good for average people that are looking to understand Bitcoin. I do think the ending of, just go get some. I mean, that's always been my position with people is, what's $100 or $500 a couple years ago, or even now, like, if you have a spare 1% of your portfolio or whatever. I mean, there's no harm in doing this. If you're using money that, you're okay with. But I do like that he put out different levels of maxis too, because there are different levels of Bitcoin maxis. And I'm sort of recently in my coming out phase of being a Bitcoin maxi. I was a consultant for so long that I had to learn so many different chains and do so many different things that it was hard for me to go all in on Bitcoin. I don't think I had to until this kind of moment with the election coming up and things, national security issues coming up. I think there was a good highlight of like the realness of Bitcoin and what exactly does separate it from all the other cryptocurrencies. So that was like my main takeaway, that this is very shareable and it's very easy. It's very simple. It's not very difficult things to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to first say that this is a seltzer and not a beer. It's a raspberry lime seltzer for anyone who's hearing that. I get a lot of shit at work when people are like, you cracking a cold one at 8:30? I'm like, no, dude, it's a seltzer. I'm addicted. So anyway, going back to the Saylor thing, I just thought it was brilliant. I thought he laid it out, and I thought he made a really simple use case, base case for the investment over a long period of time. He zooms out over 21 years. And when he gets to the appreciation point, he said, look, it's probably going to appreciate, compounding at 30% annually for the next 21 years. And that's how we get up to, I think his bear case is 3 million, his base case is 13 million, and his bull case is 49 million per Bitcoin. And I just thought between the visuals and the way that he laid it out, that this is what people are going to start to use to save wealth into the next 1,000 or 10,000 years. I just thought that was pretty awesome, because a lot of times people think about, maybe not people within the industry, and I totally hear you guys on that, but people outside of the industry think about Bitcoin as something that they can buy on a Tuesday and they can retire on a Thursday, and that's just not how it works. And if you try to trade Bitcoin, you're going to get burned because it's so volatile in the short term. So I just found it to be pretty, like, he has a couple slides up, and I've done a podcast here on More Than Blockchain about it, but I just thought it was pretty, like, pretty foundational. It was one of those talks I think is going to be referenced for a long time. For me, it's like a 37-minute long Plan B stock to flow. People still talk about Plan B stock to flow, and they refer to it when they need a good visual. I think they're going to refer to Michael Saylor's numbers as Bitcoin. In 10 years, they're going to look back and they're going to talk about this. And for me, it's cool because I'm going to be able to say I was in the room. That's like saying you were in the room when Plan B was like coming up. You were in the chat room when Plan B came up with his stock to flow and was like, creating it on whatever he used to create the visual. So I think it's something that's foundational, is going to continue to be referenced as people move forward. And even I've seen other content creators and people within the industry reference Michael Saylor's base case. They're like, well, if Michael Saylor's base case comes to fruition at 13 million, then that means this, this, and this, and this. So I think it's creating like a future metric that people can kind of use, even though we have no idea what's going to even happen tomorrow. I have no idea what's going to happen in an hour, but it gives us a metric to say, okay, this is something that we can look at that has, the math works. The maths if we continue on the trajectory that Bitcoin has been on. And I just kind of haven't really seen that. So anyways, I think it's as big as for the community as the stock to flow model. And I think it will be referenced that way, because I've already heard it referenced that way, both on private calls within the Bitcoin mining and the Bitcoin industry, as well as public calls on, even the Compass Mining podcast that now I run, and other things, and just comments. People are using that 13 million base case to kind of say, okay, now what? If you listen to Peter McCormick's podcast, which is now Mr. Obnoxious, but it was obviously what Bitcoin did, he has people on all the time that now reference that number. So I just think it's something that's like a fluency within the community that now people can reference, similar to how people would reference stock to flow in 2021, being like, well, we should go to 3 billion, whatever. So anyways, that's where I thought that it was pretty interesting. And I also think Grant and I will literally talk about this for hours, because I think that we both challenge each other well on this. But I think his laying out of like Bitcoin as an investment versus single family real estate. And I know Grant and I, when we talk about Bitcoin versus real estate, we talk about more from like having a portfolio of real estate, a portfolio of doors, you could say. But I thought he just like completely laid it out. And then seeing with what happened recently in Asheville, North Carolina, I'm just like, this is just for me, we're in a crazy time of like the macro climate event world of things being ruined and then FEMA coming in and saying you have to rebuild and you have to do it this way, and now that's more than the value of your house or that you're going to get insured on. It's like, what if they just were renting and had Bitcoin? Then they just get to kind of walk away and still keep some wealth. So I think we're at a really interesting point, and I think using that Saylor number is going to be something that continues to come up. So for me, it felt really foundational, but maybe it kind of missed for Grant, and that's okay too. But thank you for watching it. And Aussie, I do need to watch your Polygon one. I just have not. It's not
even Polygon. It's all about community, and
okay.
It talks about meme coins as basically digital communities. And Murad does a really good job. It's 20 minutes, and honestly, like, you can tell that he's covering so much because you can feel the pace, and it's so well delivered in terms of, and so well presented. I think this is something that I can understand why Saylor's presentation can be kind of, people look at it as a big presentation, because we don't normally get those level of quality presentations in crypto.
Did I watch the right thing? Like, what do you mean? Like, you said he laid it out. He literally skipped. He said, it's better in real estate. Real estate's only good for 7 years, 14 years, and then moved on. He didn't lay anything out.
Like, but he went through all the different types of investments that people will make right now. He's like, bonds.
But in generalization, like, I expected something called a keynote at the top Bitcoin conference to the reason I felt like it felt more like hype and not a keynote at the Apex conference. So I'm jumping on this, Aussie, only because, like, I can't suffer the idea that there was any meat. I can agree that this was a great tidbit for the public, and it has great, like, generalizations because people don't know what questions to ask. But I was massively disappointed that what I can believe to be one of the most intelligent people on this gave nothing of substance, gave everything of hype. Just because it had numbers attached to it, he didn't verify his numbers. Like, why does he actually think real estate is this long versus gold? He said gold's only good 6 years. And I'm like, the fuck, where does this number come from? This is nothing but questions.
Yeah, do you want? That's fair. I think
he did go into, he didn't say gold is only good for 6 years. He was basically looking at the amount of rate that you need. Like, for the house, he was talking about maintenance. He's like, if you put in 7% into a house every year in maintenance, then you're basically the house is gonna eat itself in 14 years or whatever, whatever 100 divided by 7 is. And he did the same thing with a Lamborghini. He's like, you buy a Lamborghini in 5 years, you've basically put the same amount of money into it. Like, like with the depreciation and the debasement of currency plus the maintenance, that's how we broke it down. And he was like, and then when he looked at Bitcoin, he's like, there's no maintenance. You just put this thing in cold storage, and then he gets into cold storage and AI, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. And to be fair, it was a little over my head. But he was just talking around, once you take your economic energy and you put it into something, you take it out of fiat. We can all agree that we need to take our money out of fiat if we want to preserve any economic energy tomorrow, right? He was saying, if you put it into a home, between the overall debasement of the currency and what you need to put in to either pay down your mortgage, do that. That's where he was talking, and that's where he gets to Bitcoin. Once you put the money in Bitcoin, there's no maintenance. If you don't sell
I was talking about like a 1 basis point maintenance for the electricity costs to run your computer to check on your Bitcoin.
Yeah, but not even that. I mean, but that's where he was getting. I mean, that was the whole premise. He was like, you look at things, and he's like, this is why he talks about a Lamborghini, which I thought was funny. He's like, that thing's 5 years and it's useless because the depreciation on it, once you ride it off the lot's like 40%. Then you have to put in like 5 to 10% annually to keep the thing up and keep it running. Plus you have insurance. Plus you have all these things. He's like, it's basically not even an investment in 5 years. You've lost all your money, but that's fine because you get the social status out of it. You get whatever it is. He did the same thing with real estate. He just looked at like the debasement, how much you're gonna have to put in. And so that's how he did it. He did the same thing with gold. He said, and with gold, he was looking at the amount you can basically mine. And he was like, you can mine 1 to 2% a year. So he does that out. And he's like, in 45 years, it's not worth anything relatively. Because he was talking about how do you preserve, the question is, he's always talks about how do you preserve $100 billion for 100 years? what is the best mechanism to do that? And he always says Bitcoin is undefeated. And I think he probably, with the numbers we have today, he has probably the best answer. But a lot of the ways that he was discounting other things was just talking about how much maintenance you have to put into them. For me, like a single family home, just a single family home, if we're just looking at that, when you look at it over a long enough period of time, you're just keeping the same purchasing power over 30 years. Because of how much you're gonna have to pay in the mortgage, you probably pay 1.5 to 2 times the amount that it was actually worth. When you get it out, it's just not like you've had to like redo a bathroom. You're just putting constantly more money into it than you're ever going to be able to pull out. And I see it with people all the time. My friends are trying to sell houses right now, and it's brutal. They're pissed. They're like, well, I got it for 300, and I know I put in 150. And the market's gone up, so I want 550. And the market's like, no, dude, you're gonna take 425. It's just not worth that. That's the way that he talks about other things compared to Bitcoin. Because the idea is you just buy Bitcoin, you take your fiat, put it into Bitcoin, you put it in cold storage. That is it. It is the easiest way. There's no leakage, and you're not gonna, there's not other things. That's it.
I would add too that maybe Michael Saylor didn't say anything that was like incredibly novel to us or the audience that was there. But I do think in this last year, with presidential candidates coming out and talking about it, with everything that's going on globally, this is hitting the average person in a different way. And even like at the end, he was talking about an individual investor, an institutional investor, and then like a nation. And I mean, even to just openly talk about these things. And I feel like sometimes I don't know if it dates me, but when I was talking about this stuff in 2018, 2019 at coffee shops and whatever, like I felt like I had to be really careful about some of the information I was saying just because it felt so controversial at the time. Like there were just certain terms I wouldn't use, certain things I wouldn't say. And from someone again who, worked in local journalism in the newspaper industry for 12 years, I mean, you don't read on the front page like how Bitcoin's going to affect individuals, institutions, and nations. I mean, these aren't like typical conversations we're having. So and again, like how much access have regular people even had to knowing what people at the top are thinking about these things and how they see it moving? And I don't know if you guys ever played the game Oregon Trail, and there was another one called Yukon Trail, and there was one called Amazon Trail. I owned all of them. I was on all the trails. But in all of them, when you think of like a rush like this transformative moment, how much used to have to, people died of dysentery going to the Oregon and, the gold rush, and how difficult is it to buy Bitcoin right now? I mean, I know, Grant, you were in like mining it a while ago to get it. And now, I mean, Coinbase, you go on an exchange, you buy it. Like this is like a zero energy really output to get something that has, such long standing value.
Yeah.
Jacki, I think that's really good context. And Grant, I do hear what you're saying as far as a keynote. Maybe you were expecting something more philosophical or something, but they call keynotes basically to any of the big speakers at Bitcoin Nashville. He wasn't like the biggest speaker. There were other people. Trump was really the biggest speaker. He was on the last day. He was the one who shut everything down. Secret Service was everywhere. So I think Jacki's 100% right. That maybe have been the biggest slide. We're talking from the average person who's just like, you know what? I want to give this to my grandson. I'm 60 years old. I don't know what the future holds, but I feel like if I put $1,000 in this and I eventually give it to my grandson when I die at 80, that might be something really great, a real nice gift that I could give this person. And then to think about the nations, I mean, for me, this next bull run is going to be defined by sovereign nation adoption. El Salvador is the tip of the iceberg. Bhutan is going to have more Bitcoin than most of Europe, most European nations soon, because they've been mining like fiends since 2015 quietly. Now they're public about their mining, and they're working with big pubcos to get this stuff done, public mining companies. And it's just like China and the U.S. are the two biggest holders of Bitcoin, not per capita. Bhutan blows them out of the water because there's like 500 or 600,000 people over there. But one of them is essentially going to end up buying or take on the strategic reserve. Like that's like a very serious thing that both the Democrats and the Republicans are flirting with throughout the political sphere in Washington, that like, okay, maybe we need to first lock down the fact that we have billions of dollars in Bitcoin and assure that we don't sell this. And then the other one, and Robert F. Kennedy was the guy, RFK got up. Is it Robert? Am I? No, or is
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yeah,
There's so
Bobby.
many,
Yeah.
there's so many Kennedys. Right, RFK Jr. He's the one who got up and he's like, we're going to stack Bitcoin at 550 Bitcoin a day until we get to 1 million Bitcoin, you know? So, and I know he's not going to win the presidential election, but the fact that he was running as like the independent is crazy. And Trump, I don't know what he's going to do with Bitcoin. He's made a lot of promises to the Bitcoin and crypto community. And like any politician, you have to take every promise on the campaign with a grain of salt because once they get into office, things are always different. But he's very open. Trump was just down at PubKey hanging out with, you know, people we have like Compass board members and stuff. And it's crazy. So
When he was at Mar-a-Lago, I have a half dozen friends that I know, people that I know and I interact with, were out there at Mar-a-Lago talking with him, like
about crypto.
about crypto at his big at his NFT his second NFT meetup
God,
at Mar-a-Lago. I know half
exactly.
a dozen
It's
people.
just painful to hear, but yes.
It's yeah. I also don't know if Trump is good or bad for the brand because I think he's a long-term scamster on many levels. So I
He's
don't
like
want
the
him to
original
be.
orange, though.
He is the original orange. Oh my god.
Oh
anyway,
my God.
Grant, I think that that's one of the bigger things is the nation state and calling out that like Michael Saylor, basically you take that and that was a blueprint for anyone because he also talks about companies, right? He's like MicroStrategy has figured out how to do this. You just need to buy Bitcoin, put it on your balance sheet. Your stock goes up. You take that, you know, you sell some stock and then you buy more Bitcoin and the stock goes up. And so he laid out for individuals, he laid it out for nonprofits, he laid it out for for-profit companies, and he laid it out for nation states. And I just think that people are watching that around the world and saying, what are we doing? Right? This guy's laying this out. I've had conversations in the last 2 weeks with multiple nonprofits about taking Bitcoin and putting it on your balance sheet and just waiting. You know, take the $100,000 investment. Let's get it from a Bitcoiner. Let's get them on board with what we're going to do. Let's put it in a wallet. Let's multi-sig it and let's wait 10 years. And if it does go to 1 million, we've 10x the economic energy that comes in. We've staved off some inflation and some currency debasement. And now let's go dump that into more projects than we could do today if we used it today. And that's a really interesting thing for nonprofits who are always I mean, you guys have all been around nonprofits on some level, but nonprofits, the one thing they hate is the one thing they have to survive by, and that is going out and getting funding. If they can figure out a way to not do that, that's going to be amazing. And I'm just going to put out a blueprint here. I probably after this bull run, I'm going to be maybe taking time and trying to figure out how I can get a bunch of Bitcoin into a fund to just do that, to in perpetuity fund maybe 4 or 5 different nonprofits forever, just by taking a little money out of the Bitcoin bank that we put together. Because I just think that like that needs to be done. So anyways.
Yeah, that's actually an idea that I've been thinking on a lot about. I'm not as much of a Bitcoin maxi as you are in terms of I'm still in my growth phase, so I need to be hitting much higher X's than you do. But the goal is ultimately Bitcoin, and for me, it's Bitcoin and ETH because ETH does have a dividend. Essentially, what I see is a dividend, and Bitcoin does not. But that being said, I definitely agree in terms of a store value or an offering or of a fund. I think being able to provide like nonprofits in perpetuity funding is something that not a lot of organizations have the chance to get, but a lot of good organizations deserve. And so I do like how he did lay that out.
Yeah, I love that. Jackie, if you want to stay on Bitcoin, stay on Bitcoin. But I also think we have an opportunity to switch into ETH because that was one of Grant's questions. Does he go into ETH? Do we not go into ETH? Aussie, you just talked about long-term getting ETH and probably having validators. We've talked about that. That's a moment too, Jackie. So if you want to, go into that with what you're going to say, that's cool.
Nope, totally unrelated. It was just about nonprofits real quick. Like, it's amazing that like local journalism is still so against Bitcoin, against talking about crypto. And it's always, I still get a printed newspaper. And I mean, I realize I live in a very like Democrat city or in whatever, but it's just, it's very hard for nonprofits to trust that this is something to like put they're used to getting grants and going to government for funding too. So it's difficult. They're like, well, everyone's saying this is bad, so why should I trust you that this is, good? So, I'm awaiting, mainstream media to take this seriously as well. But yeah, let's switch into ETH.
Gosh, well, I almost don't want to. I love what you just said because I have a lot of conversations still behind the scenes. As you guys know, I was doing crypto philanthropy strategy for Mercy Corps, but I still have conversations behind the scenes with multiple nonprofits just trying to wrap their heads around what this is. And they still have exact fears like the ones you just laid out. Many of them don't want to play. And this is Mercy Corps as well. And I'll say that on mic. I have no problem with that. Mercy Corps and some of the bigger nonprofits, philanthropic institutions in the United States, they get so much money from USAID. They don't want to do anything to mess up that relationship because we're talking hundreds of millions, probably billions of dollars a year are given to the biggest nonprofits. So they don't want to do anything to mess that up. And one of the things that USAID historically has said, and this is kind of a US thing, is they do not want anonymous donations. And so much of crypto is pseudonymous. Yeah, the wallet address, but you don't know, who sent it. And so that creates a real big friction point. Because we live in a world of don't trust, verify, and they live in a world of only trust because they've never had a way to verify. And so it causes a lot of issues like philosophically around how they're going to wrap their heads around getting crypto. Because a lot of times in the crypto community, people have like a couple thousand ETH and they want to give you 5, but you can't take it because you don't know who it comes from. That just seems kind of weird, I think. And I understand why it exists, right? So you don't have, maybe bad actors in the world funding things. But I think if you're going to take money from a negative light and put it into a positive light, I think we should be doing that all day long. But USAID maybe isn't on board with that. So
yeah, you need people to help shift that policy forward, working in levels of government, levels of lobbying, and all of that to slowly change the narrative. Unfortunately,
yeah. Let's talk about ETH though. Let's talk about ETH and Bitcoin. So Grant, because Aussie just called out long term, I think ETH's definitely part of his strategy. He's playing with memes, playing with altcoins, playing with other things right now, airdrops to try to get some liquidity to then be able to get a bigger bag of ETH and Bitcoin, which I do think actually makes Aussie a Maxi. He just doesn't know yet if that's his end goal. If you're saving up to go to Aruba, I would say you're an Aruba Maxi.
Well, see, I agree with you. From a wealth preservation perspective.
Okay.
I disagree with you in terms of a growth strategy perspective for those who are looking to go that growth strategy. Like if you're Grant and you want to sit, like you want to buy your Bitcoin, you want to buy whatever crypto, stack it every 2 weeks and just park it and not be kind of in tune with the market, then yeah, okay, Bitcoin and ETH makes a lot of sense. If you want to
the fucking community is not the market. Like
what?
Being in tune with the community and the meme community is not being in tune with the market. Man, it's 10 a.m. I'm already getting zinged. What, dude?
MMA meme market makers.
Meme market.
There are meme market makers. You want to? Oh god. No, but being in tune, you've got to be in tune with the altcoins, like not just memes, but like the underlying dialogue that is going on in the industry. There's a lot of underlying dialogue about ETH and altcoins that, if you're just looking at headlines and looking kind of at the surface, you don't see. And so,
can you share something that we don't see if we only read the headlines in ETH right now?
Good question.
Well, I mean, one thing is if you look at like previous ETH utilization and how ETH moves in cycles, we're approaching a point where usually in the cycle, based on statistics, ETH hits a strong low. This is the low that ETH normally hits, while Bitcoin kind of hits its dominance high, and then ETH will then kind of start doing its thing as an altcoin and outperforming between the end of Q4 and the start of Q1 2025. If you look at the underlying numbers on L2s for ETH, there's some pretty strong underlying numbers on L2s for ETH, and everyone's talking about how ETH like it's teetering on inflation of supply, like hitting kind of like stagnancy in terms of the pre-merge supply. And the reality is that's because you're seeing 99% of the activities happening on L2s, which is all about ETH scaling. But the reality is the minute the market started heating up, like 2 weeks ago, the fee, like ETH GUI went sky freaking high. Utilization to ETH went back from 0 to 100. Like, we were talking about $15, $20 gas fees again, which, I mean, compared to $100 was like that we saw at the peak bull run, it was nothing, but it's still, compared to the $2 or $3 that we were seeing at one point this cycle, that's still that's a 5x jump. So those are some of the underlying conversations that are going on with ETH right now that just don't necessarily get talked about in the media. And
so this is not the market, though. Like, my hang up both with Saylor's thing and the entire crypto market at this point is when I get involved in these conversations, A, the assumptions of jargon, but B, the spinning of language, and it's not helpful. Like, let's call it what it is. We're speculating, or we're trying to create a GameStop, because it's not the market yet. It's a bunch of bros or people talking about some potential technical data analysis or technical hoodoo that they go, hey, I've reverse seen some of these like charting methodologies, and this is what I'm speculating. And if we can create enough like light and heat in this conversation and generate some volume, we can then push this narrative, generate volume, then it moves and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's not the market yet. It's an attempt at market making.
I disagree with you right there, because the market, the market are everyone that's using it, everyone that is purchasing it, everyone that's involved. And so what we're seeing is all of the people that are using the technology are statistics. I was talking about GUI and gas fees. We were talking about daily active users, number of transactions. Those are underlying statistics. And
I have a question.
Go, Jackie.
Does Ethereum have the most developers on it?
If you look at it between ETH and L2s, 100%.
Because it's always seemed to me that Ethereum had the most devs on it. And to your point, Aussie, we talk about like user adoption all the time. And it seems to me that ETH has been the most adopted in developer communities. But I think it had an opportunity to build on it. Bitcoin you weren't really building on so early on, and then of course like Solana came up and everything. But I would assume more people like write in Solidity than like Rust and other languages.
Yeah, most of the largest number of devs that are actual devs, because talking to memes, there's devs get used in a completely different way. But yes, in terms of actual developers, the Ethereum ecosystem as a whole between L2s and the ETH main chain is the most developer heavy ecosystem. So essentially there are all kinds of these underlying statistics that all say, okay, this is where we're at. And then yes, there's some technical analysis charting aspects of it, which is what happens in the stock market too, which happens everywhere. Like you look at the underlying technicals and fundamentals of a company before, like Berkshire Hathaway does, before they make a purchase. And so there is a bit of technical and fundamental analysis that's going on that's saying, okay, yes, based off of this, there's an underlying conversation that says, yes, ETH should continue to should bounce back higher from here based off of all of this. And like the gas fee statistics is just like, it's right there in front of you. When you look back at it, anyone can go look at the GUI and you can see, okay, yeah, there was a massive change in that usage as soon as the market heated up.
I want to hop in and ask a couple of things. Aussie, thank you for outlining maybe some of the things that aren't making headline news. And I think the comment there is also an interesting one because I've always felt the same way, and I'm not even sure if I can articulate it. And it's like you need to be near crypto and you need to be near Bitcoin daily to really understand like what is actually happening. And to be fair, most of the times it's exceedingly overwhelming because this doesn't take weekends off. You can go online anytime on X and there's going to be some space that's going to give you some alpha. It may seem like alpha, whether it actually is alpha, you'll find out in the next 24, 48 hours or 2 weeks. And from then we have, CoinDesk, Blockworks, Cointelegraph, Bitcoin Magazine puts out stuff. You have, I would say, a good amount of places. Forbes Digital Assets is phenomenal. You have 4 or 5 different publications that maybe I really trust and I would really look at to, hold numbers. But beyond that, I think it's really tough to figure out what is alpha and what isn't alpha. And then beyond that, there's also, how do we judge things, right? Because what you're talking about is looking at a company the way value investing, right? Let's look at their CEO, let's look at their board, then let's look at their monthly revenue, look at their annual recurring revenue, right? Their MRR and their ARR. Then let's look at the product they make, and then let's look at their marketing team. And I just think that crypto and even Bitcoin is in a completely different world. And so we almost need to like reshape the way that we think about the value and we think about future price point because we're kind of in a new thing, especially like just focusing on Bitcoin. There's no CEO, there's no marketing team. So then how do you value invest it on some level? I think it gets kind of weird. I'm not putting this on either way. I'm just saying it's interesting for us to like consider. And I want to throw another, and I see you ready to go. I want to throw another wrench in here. It's like the way people, my father's 79 and his generation, when they think about the economy, they're hyper focused on jobs. They're like, well, if the unemployment's down, that means that the economy's good. He and I talk about this a lot, but I'm like, I think that has completely shifted over the last 20 years or so, because now multiple people have 3 or 4 jobs and they're not well off. So I don't think even employment is a good indicator of maybe how well an economy is doing. I think it could be, right? But it's not the end all if you look at one thing. And that's just because things have changed so much. And I do think technology's had a lot to do with that. Just because someone has a job and they're driving Uber, maybe doesn't mean that they're okay. Some people drive Uber and they make over $100K a year because they crush it. So I think that the way that we, like the metrics we use to tell us the narratives are really, really important. And I think they're shifting around value and just around things. And I use the job and the economy just as a kind of a macro to say the way we used to judge things may not tell us the same narrative or tell us what we need to be understanding about, like, growth or value in a certain sector. So
absolutely. So one thing is, I don't think looking at the CEO or even the marketing team makes a difference. I'm looking at usage. Who is using what, and how many people are using that, and how many people are building on that, because I think that's a better level of detection of activity, because I think activity is a driver of value.
Wait, say that one more time.
Activity is a driver of value.
Interesting.
Okay. I think Aussie's just you're hitting on the, oh man, how can I not remember this? I mean, monthly active users is a massive thing. If you come to our app and you're like, how many people you have on? We say 10, we say 10,000, we say 100,000, we say 100 million. If you have 100 million people on your app, it's $1 billion app, if like 9 times over. So I do think activity does equal value, just to back that up. And I think we've been doing that for a long time, since the social medias. Yeah, since social media, since Facebook. How many monthly active users? That was like the way Mark would be like, yeah, we have 2 million people. Because it wasn't just visiting the website. Then we have 2 million people in our ecosystem that are active, as you said, the activity. So Aussie, I would love to bring up back in March, I had you and Grant on it. We were talking about our bull market predictions, and you said ETH is going to go to 12,000 this cycle. Yeah. It's around 2,200-ish, and I could be wrong. Maybe it's at 2,600. It's fluctuating. I haven't looked in 3 minutes. 26. We're a little bit off that. Are you saying that even though it's down now, it's going to pump and you're still feeling good around that 12,000? I want to check in with you on that 12,000 number. And then I also want to check in with you just in general about let's start to shift and give Grant some unsolicited, not financial advice on the public airways. Should Grant be moving into ETH? Should he be selling ETH? Are there other things? I tend to agree with you that while Bitcoin is the best way to preserve your wealth in this bull run, it may not be the best way to get some cash, right? And I've told all of you, I've putting money in other things outside of Bitcoin, and I will say that, even though and that's partly because I feel good about where my Bitcoin stack is, and I know that there's other things that are going to go 20 or 30x. So with that said, Aussie, are you still feeling good around the 12,000? What would be your advice for Grant as he starts to look at rebalancing his portfolio?
I'm still feeling good about the 12,000. I will get worried about the 12,000 if we check in 3 months from now. If we're looking at January, February, and we don't start to see that movement from ETH, then I'll start getting concerned. We're at 2,400. I just checked, so literally split the difference from what we were talking about. So I do think that ETH will run, but am I a little bit more concerned? It's underperformed a bit more than I thought it would, but at the same time, all of the statistics that I'm seeing kind of point me to the direction that 12,000 still a viable number.
Sweet. Okay, so with that, Jacki, Aussie, let's start to give Grant some portfolio therapy. Grant, could you lay out what you're thinking, and we can share our opinions?
Well, real quick, Jacki, what were you going to say?
No, let's keep going.
Oh, so what I was thinking is as adoption of anything occurs, it approaches the averages in its behavior, right? Because it's approaching the averages, and so activity. To your comment about activity, this correlates to my thought about Ethereum and whether or not I should ditch my Ethereum. I was a very big proponent the early days of checking GitHub and how many developers were developing in which languages, how many GitHub pushes and pulls were being done. And the reason I felt, in retrospect, that was important at the time was because there was a lot of investment dollars. A lot of the speculation was being dumped into these. And so the race at that time was, can they dev themselves into good projects? And by good projects, I don't mean interesting that scratches the brain. Market demanded projects. Market being the average Joe on the street benefiting from that technology, right? And at the time, we were speculating then, like we're speculating now, that this number, the GitHub developers and their pushes and pulls and the repositories indicating that far and away over any other blockchain, Ethereum was the leader. And so then that market shifted, and that race to develop yourself, develop your own blockchain into the market's hands waned. Out of that came, in my estimate, very little useful, marketable technologies. There are some that are very powerful. We'll all, at any one moment when I stop talking on the mic, someone will mention the driver's licenses in California. And that's one of the millions of projects that have gone on. I've
got 4 on my mind right now, and I'm not even talking about the DMV.
That's great. But I mean, that's fantastic. I'm talking about the millions that we were tracking, right? And that will be good, and there will be some shining stars, hands down. However, when I look at an investment, now I'm not looking at activity of devs. Jarrett, you reframed the activity comment to active daily users, which does include some of the devs because of the way the technology works. But you're right, the rise in active daily users could be people just doing transactions, and that is a type of demand. So, but what I've seen is the numbers are very flat, relatively speaking, relative to peak. And we're supposedly entering a bull run, and it's a very flat start to the bull run. And so I'm looking at Ethereum. That's when I start looking at, well, what is the marketing team doing? What is the leadership doing? That's when I start asking those other questions, because my first flags are starting to be raised of, wait, is shit even happening out here? Relative to the size of the market. Yes, there's still people coding in C#. That doesn't mean it's a living code. There's just people doing it. We can name a few interesting projects on C#, but still fuck C# as a coding language, right? Like it's not going anywhere. And so as an investment with a potential future, now I do have to look at things like vision. Now I do have to look at things like leadership. Myself, this is how my rubric goes. So all of that is the context that to Jacki and Aussie. Now I'm going, well, damn, is there a future for Ethereum? Should I actually buy a node? Like, what are we talking about? Because leadership is weak as hell. He obviously doesn't lift, and he obviously doesn't sow vision.
Who
And
is
so,
leadership when you're saying this?
Vitalik.
He's
Oh,
saying
yeah,
Vitalik
Vitalik.
doesn't lift. I'm dead.
He
I'm
lives with
dead.
his mind.
have you
so
seen Deadlift ETF? We'll look at that later. Deadlift ETF.
I have,
Yes.
I have a
Yes.
quick question. I want to go next if I can.
Go,
Go.
Jacki. That's kind of my context.
Well, when
Please go,
you say
Jacki.
when you say like the market demand, what I'm hearing from you is users, like everyday people using things. But I would posit that in all of this development right now, we're just that market demand is being created by institutions, being funded by people that are visionaries and seeing, where we're going. So I guess my question back to you is, I know you know enough about Ethereum, and we haven't even hit the point of like Oracle's really doing what they're going to do yet. We haven't hit real-time data. We haven't hit AI computing this data. So I guess like if we reframed it to market demand, not necessarily coming from what people are asking for, but coming from what people need to happen, maybe, does that change your opinion of Ethereum?
It could. And let me try and say back to you what I think I heard you say. Grant, even though we said that same line of, we were towing that line during the days of Wonderland investments, even though Grant likes to think because the institutional adoption has been so public so far with the ETFs and everything going out, now we have massive market forces that can surmount any of our other little technical analysis hoodoo. What I'm hearing you say is, no, Grant, we're still in the iteration phase. We're still in the underground phase. If that is the case, then I would agree to hold on and double down on
I
here's
think we're
something-
still in the underground phase. Go,
And
but
really, really
Jesus
quick,
Christ,
something,
really?
something people have been talking about that isn't like hugely talked about yet, but when I learned a blockchain in 2016, I thought, wow, this is going to change supply chains. Never could have imagined that the pandemic was going to happen. Never could have imagined that supply chain was going to become an everyday term for people. So what if we have a climate pandemic? What if we go on lockdown because of crazy climate situations? This is going to like push the need for oracles. It's going to push the need for, and I think that is going to build out on likely Ethereum. There's definitely other blockchains that it can, but I think Ethereum is very positioned to handle some real world problems in a very dynamic way.
Yeah, I think the L2 thesis in terms of L2s, which L2s are some of the reason why people are getting down on Ethereum because it's driven down the amount of fees that Ethereum is collecting, and made Ethereum look dead because everyone's people are starting to build on L2s. It's actually the reason why I think Ethereum has the future. And I do think we're still in the underground phase based just on the conversations that I have every day. There aren't, like, if we look at the crypto space as a whole, general adoption if you're looking at peak, you're not going to feel any growth. You're probably going to see a decline from peak because that's what happens at peak. You have peak euphoria. Everybody's piling in, trying to make a quick dollar. Like Jarrett's comment about becoming rich from buying on Tuesday and being retired by Thursday. That's what peak is. You've got to look from valley to valley. And if you look at from valley to valley, Ethereum and everything is up. And if you look at if you're talking about 4 killer apps right now, I've got 2 that I've got like right here, right now that I know, and a lot of people watching this will know. Polymarkets, and oddly, these are both Polygon. They're built on the Ethereum. They're part of the Ethereum ecosystem, but they're built on Polygon, and I love Polygon. Polymarkets is cited almost daily, if not weekly, on the news by major news organizations for the polls for the current election. Right now, even the Brazilian Sao Paulo mayoral election data and predictions are being held on that market. You can have predictions on whatever you want, and you can gather that data and use that data as a researcher. Like, you're a researcher doing a thesis on something, whatever you want, like on opinions on who people think Satoshi is, or whatever. And you could, without having to go poll people yourself, without having to go and spend dollars to go out and gather that data, you can go get people's opinions on that directly on chain from people who have willingly decided to give their opinion on that thing. And so Polymarkets is one killer app that is being used daily. The other one that I'm going to talk about, and this one is a bit more niche, and Grant, you might not have a use for it, but there are a lot of people that do. Sports cards, and like Pokemon cards, hockey cards, any of those, that card trading. There's an app called Courtyard. It is essentially a marketplace, a digital marketplace that authenticates and then allows the live trading of these cards at whatever value you want. Like, there's values, and you can trade. It used to be very hard to authenticate and make sure that you were getting that Charizard or that that MLB player's sports card, that it was authentic, it was signed, it was actually in mint condition, and that's now, and that's a huge collectibles market. That is a huge market of people that do that daily, and Courtyard has now brought that all on chain, and people can now, during a sports game, that quarterback just scored three touchdowns. Some of them, they can now flip that. They'll flip that on a dime if they want to. Others might have literally just have a collection of cards that they're holding, and they'll sell in 5 years when they think that collectible market has appreciated more. So those are two killer apps that like really come to mind in like really, really easy like killer apps, and that are being used by people daily. I will have one thing that I will say negatively about Ethereum, and you talk a little bit about the marketing, and this is, I think, one of the places where Solana has really thrived, is in terms of their marketing with how they took over the meme coin space. Meme coins, I do think, watch Murad's video. I've sent Jarrett the link, but I've sent all of you the link, but it's really worth watching. That one, like Solana, and that has actually been one source of growth during the bear market. And so I do think Solana has taken that share. However, I do not think that in terms of overall users for other real world applications, that Solana has really broken that barrier in terms of having more real projects, those real killer apps being built there. And I think that because of the reality of app chains and like everyone having specific needs, every business has their own specific needs, I think that Ethereum has the ability to be able to cater those needs that Solana just won't, and never will, because it's a one chain to rule them all. So that's like a little bit of a rant from me, but so I'll pass the mic back to whoever wants to counter my crypto Maxi.
Jackie, what was your thought?
Sorry, my other tab was on this Courtyard now. I am such a sucker for collectibles. Like, I can feel myself like itching to just buy NFTs again. And even though I know, like Jared and I have talked about this a million times, like every NFT I owned is at zero, but I don't care. I still want to collect them all. I'm like a Pokemon at heart. Like, can't get over it. This vending machine that they're showing me, I need a pack. I need to know what I'm going to get.
Gosh.
That's it. That was your point. You're now down in the rabbit hole of Courtyard. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, she put us on mute. She's busy now.
Yeah.
She'll be here only in spirit for the rest of the episode.
Finding the rest of my wallets. I'm like, I think there's a leaf in this one.
A leaf.
So one of the things from Bitcoin Maxi land that I see a lot on X is that Bitcoin price relative to Ethereum has almost never been lower over the last like 6 or 7 years. Normally it was somewhere between 6 or 8%, but it got down to like 3.5 or 4% of Bitcoin. But I do agree with Aussie. I do think it will come back with a vengeance because there's an ETF behind it. Once there's institutional demand, that will just start to pump it. But I do think that, and Aussie said this. Aussie, what did you say? We're still in the
underground.
Thank you. The underground. I think that's 100% true. Most people, if you ask them to name one cryptocurrency, they're going to say Bitcoin, and then they're going to say, isn't there some dog coin? That's the only thing I ever hear. Ethereum is not easy to pronounce for Spanish speakers, just straight up, because there's a TH and that doesn't exist, even though in Spain they speak with the th, which is another mind blow that they can't pronounce it, but that's how anyway. So like for many people, language-wise, Bitcoin is just so easy to wrap their heads around, and then they know the OG meme coin, which is Doge. But other than that, they can't name another, crypto, and they can't even name Ethereum or Solana, two, that you put together, and they're more than a half a $500 billion of market cap probably at this point, more or less. Or maybe I'm actually off from that. Maybe Ethereum's only at like, I don't know. Aussie, you could tell me the market cap. I know Solana's around 67.
It up right now.
Yeah, I know Solana's around 67 or 68 billion, I believe. Anyways, all that's to say, I do feel like it's really underground, and I think that Grant is 100% right. We're really, if you're an investor and you're looking to get into these, you're really looking downfield. You're saying, what is this going to be like in 5 to 10 years? How is this going to play into the overall digital ecosystems that we have? You're saying, just like Jackie said, what if we have some other pandemic or climate disaster where we need to then rely on decentralized or more decentralized networks than some of the centralized networks we have currently? I mean, even just this past week, we had 25,000 people over 34 docks in the US, and they all basically said we want a pay raise over the next 6 years, which for me isn't even that unrealistic because of inflation and currency debasement. And it was costing the US like $5.1 billion per day. So it's just like, I think the one thing the pandemic showed me was from March 15th to around April 15th, I think I became highly aware at how fragile most institutions are, most of our ecosystems are, most of even our communities, like just the way they're set up locally, regionally, nationally, and globally. They could just shatter within seconds. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck. Most systems shut down if someone's not there week in and week out. And I do think that is where maybe blockchains could step in and provide different value. I still don't even think we're ready for that today. If that were to happen, like if we were to have some other disaster today, I don't think Ethereum's going to save the day by any means, nor do I think like Bitcoin's all of a sudden going to become the payment rail that we're going to use. But do I think that that's the way things are going to be in 10 to 15 years? 100,000%. I think Brian Armstrong already has shown that using Base, he was able to send USDC between two AIs. That's two machines using cryptocurrency to exchange value that had no human interaction. That is absolutely incredible. And I think moving forward, Bitcoin Lightning will be brought into that as AIs potentially start to exchange larger amounts of value. So I do think that crypto is maybe a solution looking for a future problem. But from an investor standpoint, yes, I think that's a real thing, because if you look at Ethereum, as Aussie just outlined, it's like, Aussie, what's the market cap? I know you're looking at that of Ethereum right now.
It's just below 300 trillion or billion or whatever.
300 billion. So it's under 300 trillion. That's a big difference.
Billion. 300 billion.
300 billion. And Aussie with a gun to his head can only name 6 or 7 projects that have active users, maybe. That's kind of funky. But I will say that there's a bunch more that he probably can talk about.
Sure.
The thing is, like, all those active users, does it really back up a $300 billion market cap? Probably not. but I think that that's where people are investing in the promise of it and holding it. So
well, and like I guess so. A lot of this now starting to remind me. I've jokingly but semi-seriously compared this to MLM conversation, the Saylor talk specifically, but also another thing I would compare it to is church, and I'm starting to have beef with this, and by that I mean the crypto institution, and by the crypto institution I mean the greater community living in their own echo chamber. If we're saying that we're still in the underground phase, okay. What I guess what my gut wanted to hear is, yes, guys, when we were in the Wonderland phase and started the Not Crypto Bro show, we thought that by this bull run, it would have been established. I was wrong, and I'm finding that we might still be in the underground. I want that level of integrity, but it's almost like there's this self-delusion in the lingo.
No issue admitting that. Like, I thought we would see, like, we would be further along in terms of adoption. We aren't, because, do you know what? As someone who had never experienced a bear market, that bear market,
I forget how young you are sometimes.
Yeah, I'm young, and I had never experienced a crypto bear market like the one that we had, and so to see the level of like just everyone getting pulled out either by getting their money sucked out by like gambling away their money, or by people getting bored and needing to like check out because they needed to make fiat because inflation was killing them, or people who got bored and just left. Like the number of people that got drained out of the system was massive. The people that I hang out with on a daily basis are by far, there's one guy that I still talk to that I talked to at the start of this bear market. Everyone else that I used to talk to more or less has gone. They do not exist, and they've been replaced by other people that I have met in the trenches.
And
you guys are
admittedly,
highlighting exactly why Bitcoin is so important, though. I mean,
yes, Jacki.
I got my Bitcoin hoodie on. I'm here today.
I see that.
Shoot, I just forgot. Oh yeah. For as long as I've been talking about this to professionals, people, I've told y'all I've been nearly had tomatoes thrown at me, pushed out of rooms over Bitcoin. But the truth is, you have to look at it as an infrastructure play. I mean, this is energy. This is long-term building. And also, Grant, I would position to you, what in this world is not an MLM? This always bothered me that they came after women all the time because, these little women and their little MLMs and their little selling tactics. Tell me what business isn't an MLM?
I don't mind.
Real estate's an MLM.
Let me answer. I agree with you. Everything is an MLM. It's this. When I refer to that, I did not refer to the structure. I referred to the hyperbole. The hyperbole is what gave MLM a bad name, not the structure. I am still a deep believer in MLM, and it's the same with real estate, and it's the same with Bitcoin. I do believe in a very strong Bitcoin future. What I'm growing very sick of in general is how we're talking about it. Because, for example, if I said to you guys, John is on the come up, absolutely, and Kalani Robb, he is the future. And you'd say, what the fuck is he talking about? And I'd say, surfing. And you'd say, okay, like there's no demand for what you're talking about. And you're absolutely right. I'm talking about lingo that insiders in their echo chamber are talking about in the surfer world, but you guys have no idea what that's even about. And you would even say, Grant, I don't think you know what you're talking about. It's not relevant to the market is what you'd say. When we are still talking about no, L2s are doing this, and here's the adoption, and this is what we're deving, and I go out to Burger King, we are no further along than we were when we were talking about Wonderland. So I'm not dogging the infrastructure play. You're right, Jack. I wish you would be the marketer for crypto, because you have always said, rightly, this is about infrastructure. It's a long play. We got to ignore a little bit of what's going on with the institutions. This isn't about all the up and down hype and the tech charts. It's not about any of that. It's just the longest play possible, and I'm not going to pit it against any other investment vehicle because that's its own version of hyperbole. Let's just build the future. Go ahead. Sorry. No, I heard someone deep breathe there, so I was like, okay, someone's ready to go.
Oh, I might have accidentally took a deep breath closer to my mic. than I meant to.
No, Grant, I kind of assumed you were going to come on today and just kind of say this is boring, it never moves forward, this, that, and the other. But I think you'll be the first one to admit that out of the four of us, you're the one who's taken the largest step back away from crypto, from a day-to-day, from a I'm around this, from a I'm talking to people.
Correct.
You're still probably the one who's investing the most as far as DCA.
I'm spending a lot of time with a variety of investors all day long, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that is something that's important, but I also enjoy this because if you do get enough Bitcoiners or Polygon people or NFT people in a room, they think they're going to take over the world tomorrow, and they're not. They're just not. But the other thing I want to remind us is, like, you know, let's assume that we can all agree that we're underground today, right? I don't know what, quote, above ground or being mainstream looks like, because we already have Bhutan, which is a smaller country. Most people can't put it on a map. I know I struggle too. Their flag is one of the coolest. If you haven't seen it, it has a dragon on it. They are mining Bitcoin. Okay. You have El Salvador. It's a currency, right? Milei in Argentina basically gets voted in as a populist and as a guy who's kind of like a Trump in the sense that he came from pop culture and maybe has answers. But part of it was also like, screw the Federal Reserve of Argentina. I want to do something different. Maybe Bitcoin's a solution. I'm not exactly sure. Why don't we look at that? You have countries all over the world where you can now spend Bitcoin in stores, right? You can now pay in New Orleans to the state. If you want to pay in Louisiana, if you want to pay taxes, you can use Bitcoin. So I think it's one of these things, as we've always said, it's suddenly, and then all of a sudden it's all at once. You have BlackRock, CEO, $10 trillion assets under management, running around the world saying, you know what, I was wrong about Bitcoin. I think it's a flight to safety. I think it's a flight to, not
value.
Safety. No, not value. Was a flight to,
oh God, I can't remember what it
think
is.
of it.
But
Yeah, think of it. It's a flight to quality. Flight to quality.
that's it.
And then, so it's almost like when this is finally out, I think maybe we'll all be like, yeah, Grant can go down to Burger King and he can go get a Whopper and he can use Bitcoin. I think we're actually exceedingly close to that. I think we're really close to other nations hopping on and saying we need to use this. I think we're really close to the United States saying if we're going to subsidize sugar, if we're going to subsidize corn, if we're going to subsidize all these other things to get our commodities, why are we not subsidizing the 30 public mining companies that we have so we can get a Bitcoin national reserve, right? I think we're much closer to all these things, but let's live in that world where all of a sudden the U.S. says, yeah, we're going to subsidize some electricity so that way the miners can get their, so we can get more Bitcoin in the United States held by U.S. companies. If that happens, 99% of people aren't going to even know it happened. 99% of people don't even know what Bitcoin mining is. They don't even know that there's these 30 public companies that are putting more and more megawatts, thousands of machines online every single day. So it's kind of like,
You're right.
I struggle with this too. When are we going to know that we're there? I don't think we are. I think we'll look back, like there'll be a time in 2035 where we're all still talking and we'll be like, holy shit, this actually started 5 years ago. We just didn't know. We just couldn't see it because it's so slow. All of a sudden, everyone has an iPhone. There was a time when no one had an iPhone. All of a sudden, everyone has an Instagram account. There was a time where Instagram was only for certain people. So it's like this slow kind of thing. And I struggle with this a lot. I'm like, I don't know when we're going to, quote, be there and this won't be underground, because from where we were in 2017 when I got in and I had to drive 45 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. to an ATM and put fiat currency into a machine, and then everyone thought I was crazy, to now I have friends texting me, hey, I have $50,000 I want to invest. Should I put it in Bitcoin? I think like the world is completely shifted. Bitcoin mining didn't exist in 2017 the way it exists today. In 2016, you had 1 exahash online. Today, we have around 660 exahash. Something that has gone from 1 to 660 that ties into our energy grid, shit is crazy. So
It's going to be the mark of the beast when we hit 666. I cannot wait for that. Jacki, I actually think to what Jarrett's making a point here that I think is seasoning where you were going with infrastructure, because the imagery he just gave me was the adoption of WhatsApp. I remember people talking about WhatsApp all the time, and I rolled my eyes because it felt like another chintzy Telegram or Kick app or something like that. And then I went to some foreign country, and they're like, could you hit me on WhatsApp? And then I'd see it actually was in the Dominican Republic, In 2013, even, instead of phone numbers, they had WhatsApp numbers on billboards. And so there's this infrastructure place. So I guess what I want to see or hear from you is knowing what you now know and actually re-engaging with crypto a little bit, coming out of a season, maybe stepping away lightly, at least in practically or pragmatically, and you're stepping back in. What are you seeing as the healthiest conversation around cryptocurrency?
Upskilling and reskilling people for the future of energy, for the future of what buildings are going to look like, for the future of what hardware they're going to work on, for the future of what blue collar work is going to look like. You know, that I think that's the conversation I like having the most, and we're already seeing it. You know, I'm in New York State. We just won $40 million of federal funding. New York State matched $8 million to build the semiconductor highway from Buffalo to Albany, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Albany. I mean, all of this stuff is tangential. And as everyone's said, Bitcoin is the first digitally native currency. And it doesn't make sense to have things in the physical world be translated to digital, back translated to physical. Everyone's got separate ledgers. Everyone's got separate, you know, every case for it is coming to fruition. And this is really happening. I mean, I foresee a day where vocational schools quickly, like in the next year or two, this is what we're going to be teaching people, is how to maintain facilities. And Jarrett, I think you can speak to this. What's every mining company hiring right now? Boots on the ground. People in the facilities, you know?
Oh, interesting. Not coders, not devs, like hardware.
Oh, dev jobs are going down like crazy.
You need people vacuuming the fans and switching the chips out. And I mean, these are huge places.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, that's what I was looking for the initial connection between crypto and some of these jobs you were describing. But that, I hear you now. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And that's interesting.
Go ahead, Jarrett.
Oh, yeah, I want to hop in on what Jacki's saying. And I know that Jacki, for years now, even before I was in Bitcoin mining, Jacki was really advocating for mining. She knew how powerful it was, and she knew how it really is the backbone of everything. If Bitcoin mining goes away tomorrow, Bitcoin goes away tomorrow. And if Bitcoin goes away tomorrow, this crypto thing falls away for probably, it loses 5 years of development overnight. I think it would still be a thing. I think blockchain would still be a thing. But Bitcoin is the one that has been around for 15 years, is still kicking, is all around the world. And I want to call it two things. One, Dirty Coin is a documentary I hope to have showings, putting on screenings, both with Compass and by myself. We can talk more about that. I'm going to leave that description down below. But this is a 70-minute documentary that highlights, I think, 56 or 58 people from the Bitcoin mining industry. And it's a fascinating documentary, Grant, that I think you would really enjoy just from this one angle. It talks about Bitcoin without talking about any of the financial or monetary. All it does is talk about what the benefits are from Bitcoin mining from an energy, independence, and solution standpoint.
Interesting.
And to go on with what Jacki's saying, I totally think it's the future of blue collar work, or just, you know, using your hands. I think we're going to totally get to a place in the next 5 years, 10 years, or there's a future where all of the shops that are around my town that have been open for probably 100+ years, when cars came in from the Model T, you have the gas station, and then you have a couple basically garages, right? And guys go and you get, you know, it's where I get my oil change, whatever. As we go to electric vehicles, if that's where we go, let's live in the world where that's where we go. There's not a lot of moving parts. And if they do it like Tesla, they're just going to have one thing. You're going to bring them in-house. So these like mom and pop garages aren't going to exist. Just like how the mom and pop computer store that's down my street doesn't exist anymore because I can just go into the Apple store. I go direct to the people who created the thing to help me get it going. In the future, I can totally see a world, and it already exists now, but you know, you can be Bitmain certified on the Bitmain ASIC. You can go get certifications so that way you can work on those ASICs. And so as people lose their ability to go, you know, work on a motorcycle or work on a gas car, which I even have to say gas car because now we have EVs all over the place. Those people are starting to come into mining by the droves. If you can fix something with your hands, ASICs are pretty simple. They're like a metal shell. They have a hash board and a bunch of chips, and that's it. And all those chips do is try to get at the SHA-256 algorithm. And so I know, and Jacki knows as well, Jacki's just met with one of the biggest Bitcoin mining companies. And I know from Compass, we're hiring people who can go, fix Bitcoin miners, because at the end of the day, you're probably like a Bitcoin mining company maybe has 20 to 30 people, 40 people, 50 people not working on miners, not in facilities, but they could have 300 or 400 people keeping the facilities online. And one of the things I want to call out, which is really interesting, and it's happening right now, which is the total amalgamation between the physical and the digital, is the arms race for energy. Just in the United States, if we look at that, 3 Mile Island is being turned back on in Pennsylvania, and Microsoft wants that. They need that nuclear energy to basically be able to put that into OpenAI, because they own OpenAI, and they know AI is just going to continue to need more and more energy. So you have that, you have high power compute, HPC, and you have Bitcoin mining. They're all looking for energy. As they do that, we need to become more efficient at creating energy, which on the whole is going to help overall human development, because we need energy to be able to progress as a civilization. So these are the things that are happening. But once again, all of these things, if I weren't in Bitcoin and I weren't in Bitcoin mining, or maybe if I'm in Bitcoin, but I'm not in Bitcoin mining, I would have no idea. So I'm constantly trying to ask the question, when are we there? Because now I have a full-time job that's paid to me by Satoshi because I'm helping the network on some level, and that didn't exist when I started in 2017. The job I had just did not exist, right? To create content for a Bitcoin mining company did not exist. So that feels like we're there. But then I agree with Grant. I can't go down to the McDonald's, or I can't go to the sub shop, or, I'm talking to my friends. We're going to the MLS game tonight. I can't spend Bitcoin at Gillette Stadium when I go to watch my MLS team, which is crazy. Now, there are other apps I can use where I can have something that's going to take from my wallet and put it through a MasterCard or whatever. I could use a Coinbase card, but I want to be able to walk up with my Lightning and be like, thanks, how much is that beer? Great, done. I still can't do that. However, I will call out, I've told people that the two things to look out for this next bull run that I think are going to be pretty foundational for adoption are the following. One, there's going to be a couple other countries that are just going to jump on this. I'm expecting some type of like island nations like Vanuatu, which is literally getting blown off the earth, for them to just take their entire treasury, whatever that is, $200 million, and just say, we're going to buy Bitcoin, because now we have to move our country and go somewhere else, and we're going to need things that are valuable, right? If you don't have land, what do you have? And now that could be Bitcoin. So one, I think sovereign nations are going to come out. I think with that, the U.S. is going to have some reserve is going to happen, whether it's a Democrat or it's a Republican in the White House. The other thing I think is going to happen is TradFi is totally going to kowtow. And within the apps that we have, like if you have a Bank of America app, if you have a Chase app, if you have a Wells Fargo app, stateside, Aussie, I know you're not stateside, your major banks, you're going to be able to buy Bitcoin. There will be a fee, but you're going to be able to use it to buy Bitcoin just like you would, as Jacki said. It's so freaking easy, and Grant, especially compared to when you got in 2013, to just go and buy Bitcoin. So those are the two things I'm looking at in adoption.
On that note, that's partially already happening in Canada.
It is?
I can't buy it directly on my bank account, but where I buy my stocks, Wealthsimple, I've been able to buy Bitcoin and ETH there since the last bull run, but now, literally yesterday, they announced swaps. So I can swap between my cryptocurrencies in my investment app. I used to have to pay 2 or 3 transaction fees, sell my Bitcoin, and then pay a transaction fee on that, buy my ETH, pay a transaction fee on that. Now I can swap from my Bitcoin to my ETH and pay a singular transaction fee that's lower than both of them. And that I can directly EFT from my bank account. And we're already seeing banks moving in that direction. BNY Mellon just is right now working with the SEC and the federal government so that they can have crypto on their balance sheet, so that they can actually buy crypto and custody crypto for their clients. So that's already happening. And Grant, you were asking about like have we seen progress? And I think the fact that Bitcoin is so mainstream, last election we did not talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was not a thing at all. Bitcoin is now and crypto is one of the biggest election issues this cycle. There are a couple others, but it's probably in the top 3 or 4. I think in the most recent poll, I think it ranks in the top 5. There's economy, inflation, and then it's either
Probably healthcare.
then I think it's healthcare, then it's crypto, and then it's women's issues. I think that's the exact ranking.
That's brutal. That's brutal, Aussie.
I
I'm so
know.
glad crypto is above women's issues.
Oh my god.
Good thing.
Good thing. But
my
but
God.
we're already seeing that. Like we're seeing that, and we're not seeing that down like further down the tech stack yet. But we are approaching that. And if we look at we talked about kind of in like institutional investment, the BlackRock ETF for Ethereum last week or 2 weeks ago hit $1 billion in total invested in just the BlackRock ETF. So go ahead.
Wow,
Jarrett.
we just said so at the exact same time. I'm excited to hear that back on recording. Aussie, I want to stick with this, and I want to ask you. So you and Grant came on in March. We talked about our price predictions. I'm going to put that episode in the description. I'm also going to put the episode in the description that Aussie's been referencing about the crypto community in the future. It's the 20-minute episode. But what I actually want to ask all three of you, I've kind of laid out for me what are the signals that maybe we're here. Maybe adoption has actually happened stateside, at least, or in North America. And that is more sovereign nations globally, if we see them do it, and or a reserve asset strategy actually gets passed in our government. The other is, from a retail perspective, everyone has some bank app on their phone. Can they go buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or a stable coin easier from their bank? Those are the two things I'm looking for this bull run. I think that would be incredibly bullish. Obviously, we'll see what happens. But Aussie, you were just talking. Can you lay out some things, or anyone, or Jacki or Grant, what are things you're looking for that would take it? Because we've talked about being underground, and I do still feel that way, right? But what are other things that would be signals to you guys that, hey, maybe this is here?
I'm going to agree on the three that you've got. And then for me, and this is going to sound kind of crazy, but like a meme coin that hits 100 billion market cap. Murad talked about he sees that as a possibility, this bull run. I see that as a possibility, and I think that'll be a sign that we make it, especially as one that maybe like sticks around and it becomes a social club, or it becomes something it morphs both from the virtual world into the physical world more and sticks around and isn't necessarily as exclusive as Bored Ape Yacht Club or some of the NFT projects that we saw in the last cycle. And like Doge hit 69 billion, but never moved from the virtual space to the physical space. So a crypto, like a meme coin that goes to 100 billion and maybe starts blurring that line between the physical realm and the virtual realm. So I think those are things that I would add.
Jacki?
For me, I think this is going to be a little bit of a philosophical answer, but this is truly what I believe. Like even, just going to this, what was the site you just said?
Courtyard.
The Courtyard, yeah. Even going here, my very first impression of it, these are sports cards. This is all guys. This is all boys and men that have put this together. These are all collectibles aimed at men, for men. And it's crazy because, throughout history, women are the largest consumer base. We buy more. We buy things for our partners. We demand things for the home, blah, 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 blah. So I will not say we have arrived or we're here until I see female gamers that are creating games aimed at women, until I see digital fashion really take off the way it was supposed to, until I see metaverse, really catering to include women, to be about women, until I see female projects funded. It's absolutely, one of the projects I was most bullish on was World of Women. Reese Witherspoon was behind it. She had such a great publishing company. She was putting women directed movies out and all of and World of Women tanked. I shouldn't say it tanked. I mean, I still consider it a blue chip, but is it? I mean, no, you don't hear it talked about as Bored Apes.
Most people don't talk about most NFTs anyways.
Yeah. But I mean,
I do know some great female founders, so.
And I do too. But you know what? They're not funded anywhere near the way male founders are. They're not respected and I know, I don't want to get off too much of a tangent in this. And actually, I'll thank Jarrett on camera right now. He had Becca Bratcher send this book to me, and it was amazing, The 21 Women in Bitcoin. But even this book, it's amazing. I mean, this is to me a Bitcoin standard book. This is something I'm going to be giving out to people on Christmas, especially women in my network. But this is very heavy on policy. It's very heavy on Bitcoin as a very serious topic. And that's what we need. That's great. 100%. But until I see women, it's not just about having women at the table or having women on a podcast. Like, it's about having women's values, the feminine aspects of life actually reflected in marketplaces, reflected in policy, reflected. I mean, that's what I'm waiting for. That's when I'll say we're here. We've arrived. When everybody's here.
By that standard, would you say that even about society?
I mean, 100%. You know, I thought about the other day, this HBO documentary is coming out, Who's Satoshi Nakamoto? And I seriously thought to myself, what if we find out it's a woman or a group of women? Like, how would societies around the world actually react to that? I mean, you know, you could, and I'm not even going to like venture or start something like insanely sensational right now. But, you know, it's like having a female pilot. Everyone says they want it, but you're on the plane going, I don't know. Is she going to get emotional if the rain starts raining and, you know, whatever. And, you know, honestly, I'll even say it as a woman. Like there's, I don't even think I've been on a plane that had a female pilot. And there's nothing in me that says like, oh, we can't trust her or anything. But I think there is a general, like, I don't know, men have been, we've accepted this narrative that men are leaders, men, you know, go even, gosh, there's so much. I'm watching this documentary right now called Big Cats 24/7, and it's all about like lions and tigers and just like, you know, but you know, in nature, there's such defined roles of what, you know, males do and what females do. And we're a different species. We're elevated in, you know, some capacities. And it's very interesting where this is all going to go in the next. But I do think Bitcoin's it's a breakthrough technology that has the potential to be the most inclusive financial system we can think of. So yeah, we'll see.
You know, Jarrett, I to answer your question, you all laid out some really good stuff in terms of like, oh shit, like there is a very strong Bitcoin case, and it isn't the competition against other investment classes. It's the dynamism of infrastructure that really does interest me. It's, you know, if I were looking at the stock market and categorizing the stock market, you know, based on class or commodity type, you know, Bitcoin's like this whole new energy app, fintech mashup category that has a lot going for it. And it's chicken or the egg, like it's infrastructure, right? Well, it's infrastructure for itself, right? And
it's infrastructure for more than that, though, because often they'll produce more energy. They'll build energy projects that are bigger than they can consume, and they sell that energy into the grid and provide that more resilient energy infrastructure to the communities around them.
But they wouldn't have built it in the first place if it weren't for, like, it's chicken or the egg, right? Like, I'm not dogging it. What I'm saying is my brain keeps coming back to, is there demand? Like Michael Saylor said in his talk, is it a self-fulfilling prophecy?
What isn't?
Huh?
What isn't?
No. Many things that fail aren't. Like everything that has failed because it didn't become self-fulfilling. And so the only reason I'm calling this out is I am defying any argument that says intrinsic in itself is why it will succeed. I always come back to the demand, and are we building enough to build up the prophecy to be fulfilled? And I feel like Bitcoin itself is. And when you talk about the infrastructure when there's real jobs, when there's real fan cleaners, and those fan cleaners come up with a union to have more reasonable labor, which is the feminine kind of coming out in that, making sure everyone's being treated humanely. Now you got something that's very real. Now we've got a union for these jobs. Now these jobs are set. Like, it becomes this self-fulfilling compounded thing that's like, I guess it has to live now. And so it does live. And whether it lives because I can buy a burger, or whether it lives because it's part of the power grid like Aussie's talking about, some of that kind of doesn't matter. I think it's when it starts popping up, more casually, and Aussie, you made that very good point that I was overlooking. It's now the talking point in the political campaign. So I'd say in a lot of ways, if we say we're still in the underground, we're full of shit. It's not. We're in the overground. We have publicly traded ETFs. You're right. Jarrett, you made the case. We're being traded by countries. Now, there are still people in the more philosophical, deeper tech underground, as there is in nearly every coding language, in every app structure, but it is really walking a very public face right now. And so from that regard, I would say it's meeting what I would, now that I've heard you guys out, it is meeting my requirements for a publicly, for being on the overground.
I'd say it's still in the hidden hand.
So
it's above ground, but it's still in the hidden hand.
We're talking about, Are we talking about the hidden hand, like laissez-faire hidden hand, or are we talking about like the elitist?
The hidden hand that moves everything. I mean, like, why isn't Bank of America offering me Bitcoin yet? Because they can't fully control it yet. They're not going to dive in and be like, yeah, let's see, guys. Let's just put the entire world at risk right now and just see how they act. And maybe they would. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that crypto as an amalgamous thing is in the overground. Like you people talk about crypto, but the blockchain, the tech, and the apps that are actually going to come from it are still underground. Polymarkets is maybe the first kind of app that I can think is in the overground, but even then it's still geo-blocked for the US unless you use a VPN, and people are obviously using VPNs because Fox News and all of these American news stations are quoting it. But the killer apps, the app, like the use cases, maybe haven't reached that overground yet. We're still working on that underground, and so that's why I think that you have issues with things like Ethereum. We have a lot of these things that are people don't necessarily understand or aren't talked about and don't feel like they're at maturity, because I don't think they've necessarily hit that maturity where that killer app is really above ground. The killer app is still a little bit underground, but the concept, the idea is now above ground.
So I want to, Grant, I got a question for you, and then I want to add something to what Aussie just said. This above ground, overground, underground is very interesting because I'm a soccer fan, right? I have season tickets to the New England Revolution. I've been watching the MLS since their first season. I went to the first season championship when I was only 9 years old. I'm a huge soccer fan. Most people in the United States maybe have gone to a game, but there's a large sector of people in the United States that don't give a shit about soccer. They think the MLS is stupid, and most of the global community thinks the MLS is a failed league. It's trash, whatever. Okay, you'll Lionel Messi, whatever. So it is above ground, but for many people, it's still kind of underground because they've never engaged with it. And I think we live now in a world of like social media where we all have our own little bubbles. And so I guess I'm also struggling too with like, just because something's above ground doesn't mean it's great. A lot of people watch the NFL week in and week out in the United States because it's been around forever and it's what's going to happen. It's like the NFL. It's Sunday. We watch it. But there's also a lot of people in the United States, like myself. I don't watch the NFL. I couldn't tell you a player on the New England, the New England Patriots, gun to my head, seriously. So it's also like, what does even above ground mean in this world where we are tied into apps and algorithms that feed us what we consider to be above ground or underground? And I struggle with that as well, because while I do think that Bitcoin and crypto is now in the limelight, we have ETFs, we're talking about it for presidential candidates, we're talking about, should we have a reserve, should this be a reserve asset or something that we keep in our arsenal, our financial arsenal, to weather the future storm of currency debasement? But then at the other times, I still have friends that ask if it's a scam all the time. So I'm like, and I have friends, and they're not going to listen to this, so I can say it, but they're on the chat that I'm on right now. And they're just kind of like, even if they're buying into it, they're doing it because of fear of if they don't do it, what could happen, but they're not fully into it. They're buying like 20 or 30 bucks a month and they're just kind of like watching it, but they're still weary that it's a scam. So I don't know. And then I have Larry Fink and the other, who's a 10 trillion asset under management, who's saying this is what you need to buy. So I don't know. I feel like we're in a weird world. But Grant, I really want to press you. Can you share with us, because Jacki said, hey, it's not Bitcoin for anyone until it's Bitcoin for everyone, right? We need all representation at the table. Aussie has shared that it could be a meme coin going to 100 billion, which I absolutely think we'll see. 100% think we'll see. So Grant, for you in this cycle, what's something that you're looking out for, which would maybe say it's a little bit more above ground or over ground, as we've said, or maybe that the adoption's here?
I mean, it's different. Those are two different things. What am I looking for versus noticing if the adoption is here? I mean, I think I kind of answered it, but to see if for me to start believing the adoption is here, the average person, I need to hear in a day in passing in my normal community, my non-crypto community, daily, several days in a row, someone bring up Bitcoin, which I have had several, and I make that my standard mainly because of this conversation, some of the points you all have made today. What am I looking for? I'm looking for it to hit any of the speculation that anyone has made. Jarrett, I think you missed your $100,000 mark, yeah? And Aussie...
Yep, I said by September 17th, and I just threw that out there as a thing, but I have money down on an app called Kalshi where you can bet on things in the US. I have $100 down that it will cross 100K by the end of the year, and if it does happen, I win $500. I feel very good about this bet.
By the end of the year. That'd be good.
By the end of the year.
I mean,
we
that
will
would,
stay
that would
tuned.
Be great.
Yeah, I feel like that's a reasonable expectation. October has been a little bit delayed. I'm hoping October hits.
October has been delayed.
October's been delayed by 3 days. October started yesterday.
By 3 days. Okay, so Grant, more people talking about it, and then the adoption would be for things to actually come true. Somebody saying, for me, I've said on the podcast that we did back in March, 225 would be a top of this next cycle somewhere in the fall of next year, honestly, a year out from now. You're saying if you were to see that or other things that Aussie and I've said or Jacki said, then you'd be like, okay, like it's meeting the expectation, something like that.
Yeah, but maybe yes to that. But what I think might satisfy you a bit better is what would make me start to chill the hell out about my tone about crypto. The hyperbole would go away. I want it to be fucking gone. I don't want to hear my bull case, my bear case. I want to actually hear someone say, I am completely making this shit up, but what I think is, and admit that this is all pure speculation, because we had so much speculation. Say, for example, Ethereum is the biggest example of it is the railway of like so many decentralized apps. But as you said, Aussie, well, it's layer 2. And the public price doesn't necessarily reflect use right now. And it might. But what you're saying is it's behaving like any other fucking investment. And I just want the hyperbole to go away, not just from you guys, but like from the Saylors of the world and the Kool-Aid drinking. And I want us to talk about, I love, and I mean this sincerely, Jacki, I like how you talk about crypto. I'm realizing your tone is how I prefer to take my meal of crypto talk. Like it's just a smoother flavor, right? It's like a smoother bourbon. It's like, okay, I like this, mainly because I lost so much listening to hyperbole, right? I lost a ton of money listening to it.
I wonder too how uncomfortable you are that crypto isn't popular to people. Like,
what do you mean? What does that mean? Can you say that same thing another way?
It's interesting to me in my own life. I think people are very conflicted that I am like a crypto person because they've known me as such a, consummate professional. And so like someone like me to go into crypto, it's like, do I need to pay attention? Like, why is Jacki talking about this? Or why is like someone that, that's been on the pretty straight and narrow talking about this? And I think that it's good for me because it does open the door that like there's this very real underground, overground, whatever we want to call it right now. But yeah, this is bleeding out into every area of our life. And really, Bitcoin's 15 years old. It's a teenager right now. I always think of that part in The Lion King where Simba like comes out and he's got like weird hair because he's like, he's like walking on the log, crushing on Nala or whatever. And like, that's where Bitcoin is right now. Like it has a lot of potential and opportunity in all of this, but like, who be raising Simba? Who's behind it? And right now, I mean, it's not incredibly difficult to find out like who's got the most Bitcoin, who's going to be leading the decision making on it. But at the same time, I think it's just important for people to not bury their heads in the sand. Like Jarrett, like I have, friends that I hosted at my house, recently, and like Bitcoin comes up, and it's so interesting that their parents are actually more interested in hearing what I have to say about it than them. But they're just in their very like their life, and this is just like not something they're thinking about, and it's wild because I feel the same way you do, that like, in 20 years, I don't know, like what to have some Bitcoin, like Jarrett always makes the case of like just a tenth, zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. And that's not like a huge investment right now, but it's going to continue to get more difficult as time goes on.
Absolutely.
What did you mean I'm not comfortable with it? I didn't hear the explanation on that.
Oh yeah, that is how I started this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's got just such a connotation with it, like for me, I can come back on that conversation because like, as you mentioned before, I've got my master's in technology. So, like I can talk about infrastructure and things like that. But if I remember, and I love this about you, Grant, like you got into Bitcoin seeing it as like, can I build a community off of this like
Yes.
new currency? And
Yes.
so maybe it hasn't hit that mark for you, and that original, that like renegade spirit, that rebel spirit that was in Bitcoin in the very beginning has certainly grown up. It is in like a different phase right now. So do you feel like it was easier for you to identify with Bitcoin back then, but now because it is more popular, because there is this public opinion about it, because it is like you're a crypto bro, and especially for you guys are all guys. So like I'm sure crypto in you is, you're a crypto bro. You want a Lambo. You want to like, does that like resonate with you at all, that like there's like an identity associated with that you might not want to be associated with at this time?
That's interesting. I would to validate an aspect of what you're saying. I am massively disappointed in who crypto is, who Bitcoin is today. When I first saw it, to your point, and for those who might not know, I got into this because I saw what we're now finally talking about as network states. Jesus, it took us a while, right? And we had to call them something other than decentralized countries. We found the right marketing term, network state. Fuck, okay. And we had to deliver it on a stage in Singapore, and it's finally taken off, and you had to get some clout behind it. But no, when I was first exploring this in 2008, 2009, 2010, I found Bitcoin because I was looking for the Ministry of Finance from a durable currency that no one else could manipulate. That was literally my terms that I was looking for. And I wanted that as a purist. I wanted that to build my non-location nation, now known as a network state, right? And now we're talking. Actually, the four of us are like these archetypes of Bitcoin, and come together makes a really balanced view of the future of Bitcoin, and it's informed from a lot of different ways, And so I do appreciate that about the not crypto bros right here. But no, transparency, mask off. I am supremely saddened at all four of our views of Bitcoin because not one of us really spent time today at like my purist, like me, at my purist side, because not one of us have really spent time with a true non-location nation conversation aspect of it. Mainly because I no longer think it's possible with Bitcoin. Because like no one has said, and Saylor doesn't say, what is the highest risk to Bitcoin right now? The very fact that it's being adopted. Because adoption shows the power brokers like Bank of America, the importance of it, nation states. They want to acquire as much as possible, and you have market makers that now don't have the shackles of regulation. They're in that sweet spot where they could accumulate everything, do complete market making, and with unfettered. And so we're not even talking about that point. And until regulation, we've talked about the pros and cons of regulation. All that to say, my little original passion of an untouchable currency, it should always remain underground. There should be no ambition for mass adoption. There should be ambition for network state adoption, but not mass adoption. And so that was my original passion thesis for Bitcoin. And you're right. Not the crypto bro identity, but any of the publicly acceptable identities are just so far away from my original path. You're probably right. I'm probably just walking around butthurt. I'm a big butthurt, traumatized guy. That's what it is.
Yeah, and you know what, Grant? You said there's two things that you said. A, your identity. You have trouble identifying with Bitcoin now.
I didn't say that. She said that, but yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
She said that, but you've said that you don't. That it isn't the underground bro that you wanted it to be. That you wished it was still. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that you said, and you kind of started this with, I'm down bad. You started before Jacki said you don't identify with it. You said you're down bad, and
I didn't say that. What are you talking about?
Yes, you did. You did.
This turned into an intervention for Grant around Bitcoin that I did not see coming the way this is folding, and I love it. Let's keep running the tape.
Wait, let me just clarify, because this is vernacular. Let me just clarify. Are you saying, like, I'm down below my average?
I'm not. You kind of said you lost. You've lost some.
I've lost a ton of money, but I'm not down. Yeah. I'm still up by double. Like, I mean,
yeah. Well, so you've lost a bunch of money. Okay, that's what I was picking up on.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like every. Okay.
Aussie, are you hearing things that no one? Yeah, keep going.
You've lost a bunch of money.
Okay.
Like the amount of
people.
Be
the best clip ever. Let me say this slow. You've lost a bunch of money.
You know what? I've had this intervention with several people. Okay,
including the mirror.
You're the worst investor any of us
have
ever really talked to. So
is this Aussie? Is this the way he wakes up? He looks in the mirror and there's meme coin stickers on the mirror, and he says, "You've lost a bunch of money," and then he goes and does his government job.
Probably. Not gonna confirm or deny.
Okay, let him finish. I want to hear this.
Me too. I'm laughing.
Grant, a lot of the people that are not coming that I've lost contact with that haven't come back. A lot of the people some of the people that I still talk with on a daily basis who are disenfranchised with either this chain or that chain or this, it's because of that. When down to the root of it, it comes to I've lost a bunch of money on this. It doesn't mean that this thing isn't great. Doesn't mean that that this thing isn't actually going somewhere, but I made mistakes. I lost a bunch of money. And so now I am hypercritical. I have trouble aligning myself with this thing. I have trouble, like, I just see the hyperbole. I don't see everything else.
I don't see value.
Well, I don't agree with any of the last part. But I think what you're saying is a little seasoning of what Jacki was saying. I would say the biggest loss I've had with crypto is time. Time is worth more than money. I have given crypto so much freaking time, and I really have. And when you come away from it, now you do the chess match, and I know I come across as the bro guy, but like, you guys know me to be an in-depth thinker. I spent a lot of time when we shut the show down gaming out all the different possibilities that I could consider of what's going on with crypto market and what's going on with the blue chips. And obviously I can't do all the alts and the memes, but like at the main blue chips, what is going on with them? What is their future? Now, knowing what I now know. And that's the preface of nearly all of my thinking. Knowing what I now know. Where's this going? And then you go, oh, well, this is going the route of most all commodities. It's going the route of most all apps. It's going the route of most all TradFi. That's its direction. Okay, well, what are those typical outcomes? Okay, it's boring, not interested, I'll invest, because the best investments are often boring investments. We've lost even though there is a strong Wild West feel, there's not the Wild West that Jacki and I was alluding that my original desire was. This like literally unfettered self-governance structures in the current conversation. Those are not the case. Is Bitcoin still a phenomenal investment at 30 to 60% compounded each year? Yes. You can put me down for that. I would never put it apples to apples against real estate for hashtag reasons. But that's how I have to talk about it, though, as another investment, because that's its future. It's future of my idealism. So Aussie, to give credit to what you're saying, I have been butthurt by it, but not by cash loss, but by time loss and caring. I cared. I cared deeply about the philosophy. I cared deeply about the community, and I gave it my heart.
I actually, you know what? That's a conversation I've had every day. Like, there's
and I'm
people
butthurt
that
now. So
yeah, they got butthurt. They
I
put
wish
a lot
all
of time
these
into an
people would
NFT
have like
communication.
met me years ago, because I would have told them not to care this much.
Hashtag dating advice by Jacki.
Well, no, it's funny. I've been asked often. It's, people are always like, Jacki, you are so passionate about blockchain, so passionate about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like, where does that come from? And it's like, I'm actually not even that passionate about these things specifically. I'm just passionate about people succeeding as technology continues to evolve, as we continue to adopt new energy structures, things like that. Like, I just want people to win. So that's really what it's about for me.
And so check this out. So Marissa was up in her house up in North Carolina when this last storm hit. And you guys have seen all the footage from Nashville, right?
Yep.
And my first thought was, okay, let's see if Marissa needs me to get up there and help her, right? And then
I'm really glad that was your first thought, by the way.
Yeah, my first thought
I know,
was,
like, as if there could be another first thought. Like, should I help her?
Yeah. And so then you start troubleshooting and say, well, okay, just as any hurricane here in Florida, you kind of wait till people can kind of check in safe from disaster, right? And I thought, well, this will be a great use case to go send her some Bitcoin, right? And there's no cell phone service. There's no Wi-Fi service. So fuck all of the hyperbole that this solves things. It has the same problem as gold. Now, the thing with gold is if the streets and roads were actually out, the gold in her pocket actually has more currency. So the most extreme example, and I know that's a crazy extreme, gold has more value because infrastructure, it is completely vulnerable. And so the arguments for
Aren't
Bitcoin,
there peer-to-peer options directly with phones without needing the internet?
There are, and I want to say it's M-Pesa, but there's options that are used in Africa because people do have pay cell phones and they need to like basically update what I would call in Spanish saldo and get like, $3 so they can use it. But you can use Lightning offline to send Bitcoin, but you have to be right next to someone to, be doing it.
And the other, let's go to first principles. And you need
have a cell phone.
A charged ass phone.
You need a charged phone, yeah.
You need a charged phone.
Okay, so you're assuming a lot. So in these examples where it's like, oh my God, it would be really cool in this scenario, in this scenario, in that scenario, it's like, what really would have mattered is, and so this is to the point of communities. What really made me realize is I need to be an additional layer of my realization. I need to continue to think about this as an investment and as maybe some technologies will spin off that are really, really cool. But in the meantime, it really is an investment. And what matters is, can I help my neighbor? Can I help? And that has nothing to do with any of this tech. It's like, yeah, that's true.
Well,
and for me, go ahead.
Sorry, Grant, go.
No, go ahead.
No, please finish your point there on the neighbors.
No. Just like, can I actually help my neighbors? Am I equipped? Did I get the generator that I should have as a good citizen? Did I take care of my role? Do I have a good chainsaw? Am I rested? Do I have water catchment? Not that I'm a prepper per se, but it did make me come full circle that, everything is either just an investment, a tool, or it's not, but I'm not going to nerd out about it and give it my heart the way I truly nerded out about this particular technology.
I think this is a really good call out that you see Marissa, maybe she needs some support and you can't even send her money, right? Because the ATMs aren't working. She doesn't have cash. Maybe no one can take the Visa card because the internet isn't up. But I think once the internet is down, a lot of things are off the table. And that doesn't mean that it's not good tech. All right.
Sure.
At the end of the day, if you're in a desert, you're going to want water over everything else on the planet. Every single thing, including even other human connection, because then you're just in survival mode. So I think that that's a good call out, though. And I'm sure that, if you don't have a charged cell phone, it's going to be really tough for you to do a lot of things in general. That's why we charge our phones
yeah.
before we go to concerts, before we go out for the day, before whatever, you know? So
Why can't phones have like a solar panel on them to just charge them in the sun?
I'm saying brilliant. Like on the outside
There
of
are
the phone.
solar chargers, but you have to plug them
there are
into your
solar
phone.
chargers, but yeah. We're almost up on 2 hours, and that is the
Hell
longest
yeah.
podcast ever recorded for More Than Blockchain. I hope that if you're still with us, I want to thank you. I kind of want to do closing comments, but I feel like we've all probably spoken for individually 30 minutes each. This has been really good, though. We didn't even really answer the questions about how Grant should rebalance his portfolio, so I don't really know. If maybe, Grant, you want to spend some time on that, or do we close out with that? What are you thinking? Or we could just, I can just send us
this
home.
conversation. No. I think this conversation is actually going to have me keep my allocations. Actually, to be honest.
Send me your allocations because I think I've got opinions on alts that are more informed. You Jesus.
Grant and I over here with our dino tokens.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Bitcoin's a dino token. Don't touch that.
What?
No, what? No, that's not. I do not agree with that statement. But
But
yes,
everything else Grant has is a dino token. Fossils.
Chainlink's gonna make it.
Jurassic
Actually,
alt.
People still keep talking about Chainlink's gonna make it. So that's still a narrative. So if you want to keep your Chainlink, you can keep your Chainlink.
I would love for that to be true.
Hell yeah.
I would love for it to be true too. I have zero faith. Everyone keeps saying Chainlink's gonna make it.
It's like
It's
the
still
Cardano of solutions.
Except people.
Oh damn! Damn!
Oh,
I know it's not. I love
everyone
Cardano.
dunks on Cardano.
I have,
See,
I
there's
have
the
tons
difference.
Of
No one
ADA
dunks
and
on
tons of
Chainlink.
Link.
I was gonna say, puts on an orange sweatshirt once and then comes out. That's the Cardano of.
Yeah. See,
You're still holding Cardano. Be honest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay.
I love Charles still.
Charles to the moons.
Everyone
Yeah.
likes
Oh,
Carlos. All right, I'm calling this. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. Listen to some podcast platform. Please subscribe. Follow us on socials at More Than Blockchain. If you learned anything, share this with a friend. Also, sharing this with a friend may or may not kill that friendship because this was a lot of blabber. Grant, Aussie, Jackie, thank you guys for coming on. And this, like I said, is the longest ever More Than Blockchain episode. And I will say, there's a crazy amount of clips that I'm going to have to parse out of this, including Aussie slowing his speech down to say, "You've lost a lot of money." So,
Can you say it
Thank
a
you,
different
guys.
way?
yeah, could you use a different
You're
word?
down bad.
Can we define money? You're down bad. All right, I'm closing it. Thank you. Enjoy life, everyone. Thank you guys for coming on.
Enjoy life.